Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from Fantasy Football Scout. Today all about Sky Sports Fantasy Football. £50,000 up for grabs for the winner. Suddenly there's lots of injuries to contend with though. Now I know Luke, you've made a number of transfers. I've made one and more coming. But yeah, injuries and how to deal with them. I'm Joe and joining me is Luke. Luke, how are you?
I'm alright, I'm okay. I had a decent Monday to finish off the week, so it always feels like an okay game week when it ends good, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So 112 points, which I think was I see a lot of around hundreds on Twitter actually, so I'm not sure how good that is. I did move up the most of my leagues a little bit, so I guess maybe just slightly above the average of I don't know what you call them in this, the good players, because there's so many casuals in
people who realise that there's only 40 transfers. That's all it is.
Yeah.
People who don't realise that and people who do, and that's it's not casual or anything.
That is a very good way of putting it. Yeah, people who are transfer aware and people who are not.
Yes.
So yeah, overall not too bad. Used a few transfers though. I used 3 this weekend. I think quite a lot of transfer usage was going on, at least judging by my groups and Twitters and things like that. So yeah, not ideal in that scenario, but at least my team looks fairly good now, I think, moving forward. Maybe 1 or 2 I'd like to do in the coming weeks, but yeah, some of them might be a bit vanity, if anything. Gabriel, for example, is looking very good at the moment.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, we'll come on to that because we've got some questions about defenders, particularly with those Liverpool defenders that are still lurking around our teams in mind. Before we have a look at our teams, let's have a look at those bonus point stars. We've got some notable mentions really. I did do this ahead of Monday's games, but I managed to squeeze in a couple of Leeds players and of course a Leicester player that we need to talk about. Man of the match is Zuma. Phillips.
Unreal at the moment, isn't he?
Yeah, Ward-Prowse, Rodri, Podence, Partey at Arsenal, Wilson, Bale and Vardy. And I mentioned Vardy there because he's getting overlooked by some, but not all. I think he was one of the most transferred players in this week, and they were very shrewd. Great captaincy shout. Luckily for those of us that had Dallas, he came in with a goal, so that was a relief. But it could have been quite nasty.
We did mention last pod actually that Vardy was probably the best captain on that day because it seemed like a Vardy kind of game. So there we are. But didn't do it myself, of course.
After the next match, it's worth mentioning after the international break, Leicester go into a really nice run, which coincides with Kane not having a good run. Kane or Son if you have them. So that may be a good hop on and a hop off. It's worth doing. It's because we've seen what damage Vardy can do. Don't ignore the stats. Ignore the no shots in open play. He just gets points. He gathers them. Passing tier 2: Gomez, Walker, Alexander-Arnold, Webster, Diaz, who is looking like a great option, Mount, Laporte back again, Silva, and I've just added in Dallas and Ayling. There they are with their passing tiers. Saves tiers. Tier 2, this is McCarthy, Pope and Ramsdale ones I've highlighted. Not interested in any of them, basically. Tackles tier 2, this is Cresswell is interesting. Cancelo, also another good option. White, who I've got in my team, so I'm pleased I've got him. Gabriel, you mentioned, great option. Lowe, Sigurdsson and Allen. And shots tier 2, Trezeguet and Torres. Not the old Torres, the new Torres at Man City, who's adapting really well to a makeshift striker role. Lots and lots of shots there. And Bamford has got, I just wanted to mention him, because I got him in my B team. My spend some transfers, be a bit more devil may care. Bamford was in and he got shots and tackles tier 1. So I was quite pleased.
So close to a massive haul, wasn't it?
So close to a massive haul. And for those that had Ayling and Bamford, there was a very frustrating moment where Ayling passed to Bamford and Bamford just couldn't quite get that shot away. Schmeichel gathered.
One more who got shots to two actually was Barnes, because I've got him in my team and I had him as captain.
Yes, no, that was good. So I got rid of him in my FPL team, but I don't think I've had him in my. I think I got rid of him in an overhaul. But yes, he is, as we know, as we've discussed, he's great for the shots. But yeah, of all of the other players I've mentioned, any sort of spring out?
I mean, Zuma stands out massively at the moment, doesn't he? I mean, 3 goals have inflated his points somewhat, but he still is in the frame. He's not always nailed for passing, but as the best passer in the game at the moment is actually Thiago Silva. Averages 91.97, so 92 passes a game is his average, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So as a result, just playing next to that guy is going to get you some passes and Zuma's in and around there. Obviously, he's got a goal threat. Chelsea's defence is looking a lot better. They've got a good run, and he's 7.8 million. So the only thing with him is you just wonder. I think there's some talk in my groups, at least, that really good could come in at some point. I don't know if I can see that at the moment. I feel
it's like with
so well. How can he be dropped?
No, I mean it's like Chilwell being under threat from Alonso. He's not, but he could miss the odd game. You never know. They could rest. I mean, Lampard is resting players here and there. I would expect with any of the Chelsea defenders, they're going to miss a game or two. But I think Zuma's his first choice. Chilwell is first choice, definitely, in his position. Mentioned those two as well, because Sheffield United, on the FPL side of things, we had our captaincy video with David earlier today, but it's also relevant for Sky as well. Sheffield United concede a lot of headed goal attempts. They also concede a hell of a lot down their right, which is the left for the opponent. So that basically bodes well for whoever's up front on the left. Is probably won't be Pulisic because he looks like he's injured still. So it could be Werner. Good captaincy shout that day. Zuma for the headed goal attempts, and Chilwell as well down the left. So all players that are worth considering, and Zuma for that price as well looks really good. Let's have a look at your team. As you said, some changes there. So I'll just read it out. Guita, Chilwell, who you do have the captaincy on coming up for the next game week. Dallas, Diaz. That's a really good defence. De Bruyne, Barnes, Grealish, and Rodriguez with his couple of issues that he had downstairs. But hopefully they're back where they should be. Kane, Salah, and Adams up front. So yeah, so that's a really good lineup. But you spent 3 transfers, I understand, to get to that. But looks worth it.
Just before I get to that, apparently, I don't know if you know on Twitter, Nizar Kinsella seems to be a Chelsea in the know kind of reporter. He's saying that Pulisic will miss Rennes, but he is already back in training after positive results in the scan, so is in the frame for Sheffield United. Apparently, I don't know how much to trust that, but those of you that are thinking of getting rid of Pulisic, I guess there's an outside shout. So maybe wait on that one. Well, we wait anyway in Sky, don't we, until we're after the deadline. But
it's
an outside shout.
It's not the first kickoff though, is it? The Chelsea game. No. So that's a sweating on Pulisic playing, and we've had this before.
Yeah,
Will he play well?
To
be honest, I'll come to my team, but I have a long-term plan, which is KDB in, and I think I might just do that. Just hang it. I mean, get a player in I know I want to keep till the next overhaul. Anyway. So your team, you must be pretty happy with that.
I actually as well, he was on the list for Ward. You saw Ward Prowse there. You can see Adams is in my team. I was this close, I kid you not, to doing Ward Prowse instead of Adams. I actually had Ward Prowse before overhaul for this 4 games, where he did 1 assist in 4 games. No tackle bonus, because usually he was actually quite good for the tackle, so I thought at least he'd get that. Set pieces. At the time we didn't know for sure if Ings or Ward-Prowse was on penalties as well, so I thought, Ward-Prowse is going to be a great option. Didn't work out, but I almost got him back in again, and obviously if I had, that would have been an absolute masterstroke. He now looks like, if Ings is out, I don't think we've had anything concrete, then it probably boosts his appeal a little bit more with the penalties, I guess. I suppose he hasn't got Ings to feed, you could look at it as a negative, but he's looking like a good option for 8 million from there as well, so I do like him out of those options you mentioned before. And Cresswell and Gabriel were the other 2 that I really like. Cancelo and Gabriel. Cancelo's getting tackles, tier 2 tackles. He's right up there every single week. So not only has he got, potentially the best defence in the league with an incredible attacking threat, but he's also got those tackle bonuses to fall back on. Might even get passes in some games that they dominate. Do like him. It's just that whole risky thing, isn't it? Of you're picking a Man City defender and hoping they play. Outside of Diaz, that probably feels a tad risky. Seeing as though they've got about 4 left backs on their book in total, I think. But right now it still looks good. Anyway, I digress. My team. It was a good week, like I said. Diaz, Dallas, and Chilwell all at the back there. I think it was a very good week for defenders across the board. We mentioned a few of them. Gabriel, there's loads of them. I mean, Lamptey scored. I actually removed Lamptey for Adams, so I'm actually down on that move because, of course, he goes and scores the moment I take him out. But yeah, Grealish was fantastic. Barnes was a good option for me. I really like my team moving forward now. Adams is my kind of either my Bamford, my Antonio, or my Adams slot. Basically, I've downgraded that spot because I did have a rotating expensive striker like Jimenez or someone like that. But that meant I couldn't afford Diaz, and I just felt like Diaz was so good that I needed Diaz. So I took Lamptey out for Diaz, which I think will be good moving forward. And then when Antonio comes back, or when Southampton's, I've obviously went for Adams because he's got the captain coming up Friday. We'll switch to either Bamford if he still continues to look good, or Antonio whenever he's back. And then the only other move I might consider is basically Barnes to Gabriel at some point. However, I'm not sure when I'll do that because Leicester have got a good game coming up, like you said, and they may even have a captain day. So I may have to hold off on that one, which kind of is a bit frustrating because I feel like Gabriel's probably going to rack up 10 points quite often in that sort of time period where I go without. I could, of course, remove James Rodriguez, but seeing as though he looks like he was only going to miss one, I feel like I can't move yet because, he could come back and suddenly look really good again. So, yeah, that's where I'm at the moment. And as you can see, my captains and stuff there, I'm probably going to be captaining Chilwell coming up, which I think we'll talk about soon.
Yeah, so I'll move on to my team. So I've been slightly more cautious, but possibly I don't feel it, well. It's almost going to be in good shape. So I've got Patricio. Thank you very much for those surprise points last week. Robertson still there. Dallas. You can tell when I took this photos just before last night's match, so he obviously did well for me a captaincy last night. Ben White. Very pleased with him. Grealish. I've got Pulisic. Fernandez, Bowen, and Bowen came in for Antonio, and I decided to make that move. I didn't like the talk of Antonio missing out. I think he's going to miss at least 2 or 3. At least I can't see him back for the next game. Bowen, I like the look of. I like the look of last season. I like the look of West Ham's fixtures. I can always move Bowen back to Antonio if Antonio looks, incredibly like he was last season. Incredibly an amazing option, but I don't know how much more of a great option he's going to be on Bowen. Basically, Bowen just buys me a bit of time, buys me a few points, hopefully. And also, I don't know what the captaincy days are going to be in the coming month. I think we know the rest. Well, we know up to the international break. We don't know what's going to happen with the pay-per-view. We don't know for the rest of November into December. And what if West Ham have a single game day? Well, I'm going to want a West Ham asset. And if Antonio's still injured, it's going to be a bit annoying. But if I'd have known Pulisic wasn't going to play, then I might have done something a bit different. But there we go. And up front, I've got Kane, Calvert-Lewin and Salah. I can't bring myself to jettison any of them just yet.
Although, I think that's probably the perfect one for it. You could argue maybe Bamford in there for one of them, but Calvert-Lewin's actually top for shots on target.
Every time I think of moving them on, Kane, maybe if it's definitely for a captaincy option. What I'm thinking of here, Pulisic could be back this weekend, but this is what you get with Pulisic, and I don't want that. I want someone a bit more reliable. I want KDB in order to fund KDB. I'm going to move Robertson, who has Man City, and I'm going to move him to Zuma, and I'm probably going to put the captaincy on Zuma that day. Zuma or Chilwell I think are great options for the captaincy.
What about Ziyech? You like him?
I do like Ziyech, but I just like the I prefer KDB there, and in order to fund it, in order to get Ziyech, I'm basically in the mood I'm in the market for a midfielder. It's going to be KDB, top selection I think. Ziyech maybe another day. Meanwhile, I'd like Chelsea cover. They've got good fixtures coming up. Zuma or Chilwell. I can't stretch to Chilwell. Zuma on current evidence is the better option, but I mean he's not going to score 20 goals a season. Be good, but I can't see that. So
feels like it at the moment.
So that'll take me down to I've used 2 transfers so far, so that'll take me down to another 2. So that'll take me down to
fine.
Yeah, that's 4 transfers used by game week in Sky game week 9. So after 8 game weeks or so. So I'm fairly happy with that. But yeah,
what about
good.
Bruno Fernandez? Because he's kind of
Yeah.
frustrating, isn't he? But he's got some good games.
Yeah.
Maybe we've got questions on him and I'm stepping over the mark, but what do you feel about
Yeah,
Bruno Fernandez?
I know what he's capable of. I know that they get penalties. No, they seem to perform better away. They've got some nice away games coming up. I feel I need Manchester United coverage for captaincy coming up whenever we find out about the captaincy. But I think he's a great option. He's a good, reliable armband place. So I don't fully trust in the Sky format any of the other Manchester United assets, and I think Fernandes is up there alongside KDB as in the potential to have a whole clean sweep. That's what I'm looking for. Multiple routes to points. And I remember last season when I had him, and obviously he was on a great run, but even there was a couple of games where he blanked, and he still just eases out 5 to 7 points or so, just showing up.
Yeah, it's been a bit frustrating of late, but I feel like that home to West Brom game is going to be make or break for him. If he blanks in that game, then I think you're going to see mass sales. This is just so expensive. But, given how it went against Newcastle, although they were, I think it was only like the last 20 minutes he turned up, didn't he? And he got like 2 goals and an assist or something, but that can happen. And the West Brom game, I don't have him for that, and he terrifies me for that one game. And it's always those kind of players that terrify you like that. It's just like, God, I wish he could find a way.
Well, I think
doing it for one game.
If Kane goes, I think I'll do that for Vardy for a little while, because I think Vardy could be an option potentially for captaincy with we don't know the captaincy yet, but that's for me to decide at a later date. I've got a nice captaincy day for Kane coming up. But actually, speaking of which, we need to have a look at those Sky fixtures. So let's have a look. Hopefully we can get them up here. So yeah, we've got we've finally moved the Brighton and Burnley one into that Southampton Newcastle. I was getting a bit worried that it was just going to be Southampton Newcastle. So let's go down. We've got 3 captaincy days coming up for game week 9. It is in Sky, isn't it? With their cunning use of numbers with the game weeks. So we've got Brighton, Burnley, Southampton, Newcastle. Danny Ings ordinarily would be the best option. I think Adams is good. I'm going to go for Ben White. What a maverick I am.
Well, I think if there's ever a game where Brighton might get a clean sheet for the first time in history, it should be this one, shouldn't it? But they always seem to find a way. But Ben White's obviously got those tackle bonus and stuff. Lamptey went off May. People are saying, I know went off, it could have just been cramp. I think if you've got Lamptey and obviously you get to see the team lineups here, which helps, then you're just going to want to put him as captain. And it's a roller coaster ride with Lamptey that he could easily haul there. I think.
Yeah, definitely. But I think there's some options there.
What about for the people who went Ings and now don't have a captain because they don't have Brighton? What would you do? Would you ignore it or would you bring someone?
I wouldn't bring anyone else in for these fixtures. No, I would just hang it. I would just say, what will be. I'll move on. If Ings is injured long term, I would prefer a whole bunch of other options. I mean, you mentioned, Bamford is on your list there. That's a good. So if you need to move down, also all those midfielders, like Vardy as well. If you can move up, and then all those defenders as well. There's a whole bunch. There's a whole bunch of other players.
I think it's back. Like for a start, he probably might still play. We don't know for sure, so there could be that. But let's say he doesn't play, and you don't have any coverage for the Brighton, Burnley, or any other players. For me, I feel like I would give this one a miss because there's too many good long-term picks out there. There must be someone out there that you want, and I wouldn't bring someone in for this one game and then want to get rid of them shortly. No,
there's players that you would bring in maybe a couple of weeks ago or a week ago to get some nice 2-for-1s, for example, or just to get some extra points there. But otherwise, it's those that like me say who've got on overhaul. So I got Ben White on overhaul. There we go. There's my Brighton coverage, and I'm happy with that. Someone else might have Nick Pope, for example, on overhaul. Fine. Captain.
I think people will have Darlow and McCarthy as well.
Yeah, Darlow, McCarthy,
Bertrand, people like that.
I mean, so it's the kind of day where Callum Wilson is probably going to be the highest scorer, because that's the kind of season this is. But Callum Wilson is not necessarily a player I would be looking to get in but
Well, he's done very well, to be fair.
he has done well, and maybe that's just sort of bias over the last couple of years of owning Wilson and going for blank patches.
I think it's just when you watch Newcastle play and you see them not even get the ball anywhere near the penalty area for around 88 minutes, but still somehow managed to get Wilson 3 goals. It's kind of like the Vardy pick, isn't it? Where when you don't own him, he seems to churn out points, and when you have him, it's so frustrating watching because he touches the ball 9 times in the game. I don't really like having those players in the team, but to be honest, a pure statistician would ignore that and pick them, wouldn't they?
Yeah, no,
you're right. It's probably Chris Wood get a hat trick or something.
Yeah,
It'll be a mad week. Yeah.
And with Callum Wilson as well, the thing why I prefer Vardy using that same kind of does nothing for 88 minutes and then suddenly eases out a brace kind of player, is because the rest of Leicester are good as well. So there's more chances being created. And Newcastle, I don't really know what I'm going to get with Newcastle. I might get the sort of team that my team Brighton played against, where they do nothing, or I might get a team that can put away a top 6 side. I don't know, and therefore, with 40 transfers, I don't want to mess around really with that. Moving on to Saturday, some choices: Everton against Manchester United, Palace against Leeds, Chelsea against Sheffield United, West Ham, Fulham. We all had Antonio down for this one, but that's why I'm pleased to have Bowen in this one. Bowen's a contender for me, but if I get Zuma in, he's going to probably get the armband. Chilwell for you, I presume?
Yeah, I mean, I've got James Rodriguez. I could do that. Everton, I don't know how many of their players are going to be back. It's a tough game on paper, really. So probably not going to do that. I don't even know if he's fit yet for a start. I feel like if you've got Bamford, I know Palace can be very solid at home, but the amount of chances, the fact that he's second overall for shots on target, averaging 1.93 a game. So you're thinking there against Palace, who generally like to sit deep and then count on teams even at home, will probably get shots on target at least. So I still think he's a good pick.
Yeah.
Chelsea are clearly the standout just because Sheffield United has been so dreadful and Chelsea have looked so good of late. They're at home. Everything seems to point to them at the moment, I feel. So yeah, if you've got any Chelsea asset in your team, they probably jump right to the top. And then West Ham, Fulham, I say, if Antonio was in the frame, but he's not fit. I don't think many people will have anyone else. So yeah, if you've got Bowen, you could chance it, but I still feel like Chelsea asset is probably the way to go.
I think so. The Everton Manchester United being the early kickoff, if you want to play ultra safe and you like Fernandez still, Everton v Manchester United early kickoff, you'll know whether Fernandez is in the starting lineup, which you imagine he would be, although he has been hauled early a couple of times. Good option. Moving on to No,
I was just going to say, Man United can't get their formation right at the moment, can they? Man United can turn it on in any random game. We know this. The Champions League, they're scoring 4 or 5 goals, and then they're dreadful the next week. So Bruno Fernandez is always an option. We shouldn't kid ourselves if he's not, but I think when you've got a fun fixture like Chelsea at home, Sheffield United, you've got to take the fun. My only worry there'd be that they might rotate a little bit again, and you get annoyed because it's 5:30. But the likes of Ziyech and Chilwell and Zuma, I'd like to think they're going to play.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Moving on to the Sunday, we've got West Brom, Tottenham, Leicester, Wolves, Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal, Villa. This has potential to being a huge game-changing day. Lots of teams still knocking around with Aubameyang. Lots of new teams with Vardy in as well.
It's going to be a lot of variety this day, isn't there?
And meanwhile, Tottenham against West Brom. For me, it's Kane. If you've got Son, it would be Son. Their away form is absolutely phenomenal. They tend to assist or score for each other. So I think they're the best option. But if they blank for whatever reason, there's so many other players there have the potential to do damage. And we're completely ignoring the Man City Liverpool game. Salah we know about, can do whatever. KDB can score whenever. There could be some teams knocking around with, say, the likes of Sterling as well. Could do well. It's a game-changing day, but for me, Kane. I'm just gonna go for the obvious one.
I feel like everyone has got Kane, so then that means that Kane is going to be so heavily captained on that day, just as a result of he's so heavily owned. It makes total sense. Mine will be on Kane, but I don't think that. He hopefully will be the top goal scorer, but there's so many other players that you've mentioned that could be. Vardy could easily be it again against Wolves. You've got, like you said, De Bruyne and Salah. That's such a hard game to call, I think, because Liverpool's defence is decimated. Man City's defence is I know, brilliant one week and tragic the next. So yeah, I mean, either of those players could easily. Well, I feel like Kevin De Bruyne could do some real damage against a Van Dijk-less Liverpool, and equally Salah could absolutely smash it. So either of those are still really good picks, I think. And then Arsenal Villa, to me, I know Arsenal look great against us, and Villa have looked very good in spades, but generally they both struggle to score a lot of goals. I know it's a bad statement to say when Villa have scored 7 and then scored 3 the other night, but when you watch them during the game, it doesn't look like they, so unless Grealish does something fantastic, it doesn't look like they're going to get goals coming out of their orifices. So so I feel like that game could be low scoring, and Arsenal generally try to make it so. So I feel like Kane is the standout, or Kevin De Bruyne probably a second.
I feel quite okay going into this day with at least half of the big contenders for the captaincy, the likes of Grealish, hopefully get De Bruyne in, and then looking at Kane as well. But yeah, if Vardy smashes it, no one else does. It's a red arrow time.
Casual delight.
Let's have a look at those community questions. We've alluded to some of them, some of the topics already. So Reese asked, is it time to get rid of Liverpool defenders like Trent Alexander-Arnold and swap to the likes of Diaz? Yeah, I mean, I've only got Robertson left, and I'm going to move on because I'm going to use that to fund getting KDB in and a Chelsea defender. And I feel that's a move's worthwhile, and I imagine most teams have got similar things they could do. But yeah, I mean, is it worth keeping them?
Well, the smart ass answer is don't have them from overhaul. No.
Yes.
No, I mean, got lucky there. Van Dijk's got injured, everything. I think the time was probably a little while ago now, though. It's showing. I mean, I know they have attacking out, but obviously I'm Robertson's biggest fan. I think he's fantastic. But when they're not keeping the clean sheets, it is hard to justify that massive price tag for them. You at least need a few of them mixed in there, and it just doesn't seem to be coming. So there's just so many good alternatives at the moment. We've mentioned Gabriel, Zuma, basically Chelsea defenders, Gabriel, Diaz, one of those 3 options. Get on with it, basically.
Benny Blanco asked the same question, really, but he mentions some of those as well. Diaz, Gabriel, Chilwell doing really well. Is it time to move our Liverpool defenders? I mean, we've answered it, yes. All of those players are better. It just depends where you're going to go with it. So, I mean, in an ideal world, I would probably have Zuma or Chilwell, Diaz and Gabriel, and then Dallas as my sort of a back 4. I think that would do me.
That's what I'm working towards. That
would do me for a few months, and hopefully I can get to somewhere near that. But get on with it, as you said.
No one doubts that these. I mean, no one doubts for a second that Robertson or Trent Alexander can't get a massive haul in any game. But if you put up with them for 9 matches of 2 pointers to get it, it wasn't worth it. So just get rid.
I like Salah this season. And I didn't think I would. I thought, he's going to be overpriced, blah blah, and the defenders will smash it like they do every season. But that's not the case with Liverpool. So I've already got my Liverpool coverage with Salah. Any Liverpool captaincy day coming up, and I've got Robertson and Salah. It's always going to be Salah. So yeah, Robertson in Sky format, surplus to requirements. Same with Alexander-Arnold if you've got him, and definitely if you've got the likes of say Gomez knocking around. Jum LUFC, is Fornals a decent left field alternative for West Ham's favourable run? I think with doubts over Antonio, if you haven't used a lot of transfers like me, I'll move for Bowen, but I could easily have moved for Fornals. He's certainly the best performer in terms of shots at the moment. So yeah, I like him. I think it's a good move myself. Fulham next.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a differential is 0.2% owned overall, 0.1 at the top. I just feel when Bowen's 0.1 more, I just prefer Bowen overall. I know that Fornals is actually outscoring Bowen by 2 points so far. But I feel like Bowen's one of those guys who could hit brace or a hat-trick in a game. I don't think Fornals got that.
He's like the Shawshank Redemption. He's a sleeper hit. Bowen's there. He's not really doing much. No one notices him. And then, woohoo! Number one film of all time suddenly. But yeah, I feel some Bowen hauls are coming.
Well, there's also the fact that Ben Rahm has not really hit the team yet, and I feel like Bowen's undroppable.
Yeah.
While Antonio's back, he's undroppable as far as I'm concerned. And then it depends what formation they're playing, doesn't it? I mean, Fornals is more number 10, but Ben Rama apparently can play there on the left side. I mean, he's too good a player not to fit in at some point. So I just feel like Bowen's slightly more secure than Fornals as well moving forward.
Yeah. Ayush asked, do we go near Manchester United assets, even though they have West Brom coming up soon?
For me, that's a classic case of don't buy, don't sell.
Yeah, I mean, I've already got Fernandez. I'm just sticking with him. Definitely not going to sell him. But if I didn't have him, he's not for me at the moment in the sort of KDB category. The sort of KDB I would want, and then there's a big drop off, and then Fernandez.
The game's all right. I mean, away to Everton, you could probably get away with that one. It's the home to West Brom one where he could absolutely smash it. He could equally not smash it.
Yeah.
And then the games after that aren't too bad. There is City in amongst them, but apart from that, they're not overly bad. But it just doesn't feel like a good time to buy Man United at the moment. So if you sat there in your team, certainly keep him for West Brom and reassess. But I wouldn't be bringing him in.
I mean, there's a lot of people who've been playing FPL for years have come to Sky New this season and are going, "Wow, isn't this great? We're getting loads of points." Because the popular players have been doing well. But a key difference is the answer to this question by FPL Junkie: who is the ideal Pulisic replacement? Ziyech or Zaha or Bowen or Podence? Well, don't think of it in terms of that, because you can move formations around. There's no bench, so don't think in terms of another midfielder, especially not another Chelsea midfielder, because it could be another defender because of that price. So when I moved Antonio to Bowen, there wasn't really tremendous. I think I had exactly that money. There was 8 million. I didn't really fancy anyone there. But once you start getting up to 9 million, or if you've got a bit of money in the bank, suddenly all those defenders we mentioned are actually ideal replacements for Pulisic. Or if you're going to do something like me, if you haven't got, say, KDB or a heavy hitter like that, I think that's a good move as well. But it's just something to think about. It's a different way of thinking. But yeah, I know you mentioned Ziyech to me earlier, but it's a wait and see for me.
For me, it would be it's the defenders are still top. If he can move to a defender, his formations as such, then the likes of Gabriel, Diaz, Zuma, Chilwell will be top on my priority.
Yeah.
But if you are moving to a midfielder, Zaha's been fantastic, but I feel like I probably would chance Ziyech. I feel like his stock is rising now. The fact that he's basically the only player who can play on the right-hand side for Chelsea, really, I mean, they sometimes try to shoehorn in Pulisic or Mount there, but it doesn't really work. So I think that works in his favour. And he started to take some of the set pieces back from Chilwell in the last game. So I feel like he's a good option if you don't have any other option but to move to a midfielder.
And finally, Mikey, you asked a very similar question. Really, he says, "Are KDB and Diaz good replacements for the injured midfielder?" So he's got it. He's got that sorted. He knows that you can get Diaz in for an injured midfielder. This is the sort of. I mean, I want to work my way towards getting them. Manchester City's fixtures do turn. They will get a striker back, we think, in a few weeks. So they're going to go on fire. We know what Man City can do. They're exactly the team. If you've got a Man City day, you want to get your captaincy out for them, and it may not be KDB. It could be Diaz. You could go for, depending whether you think there's going to be a lot of passing, tackling, etc., going on that game. So lots to think about. It's starting to get a bit exciting in Sky. Teams are starting to look a bit different, as we saw when a few got a few shock red arrows on Monday, perhaps because they didn't own Vardy, and some who don't own Vardy and Barnes got a few green arrows.
There's also been a real shift, isn't there? I feel like so far, if you've played this perfectly, if you go back in hindsight, the way was to start with a really cheap defence, because no defenders could keep any clean sheets. So your likes of your Dallases and your Lampteys and people like that. You started like that, and then at overhaul, you probably then put a little bit of money into the guys like Zuma, Gabriel and Diaz. Not quite at the top echelon, but the guys that can still... I mean, Van Dijk's been the highest scoring player in this game, or either first or second, for like the last... I think pretty much since he came to the league, I think. So anyone who looks like they can replicate that, as in passes, the odd goal, going to play most games, and are in a top defence... a goal. So when you've got the likes of Gabriel and Diaz for even less money than him, it looks like no-brainers at the moment. I mean, I don't see Gabriel hitting Van Dijk levels, but it won't be in terms of the value compared to 11 to 8. It won't be far off in terms of value, I think. So yeah, it's been a real shift, hasn't there, in this
Yeah.
week in Sky? I think
Yeah,
going from
definitely.
cheap defenders to almost middle to up
And you're seeing,
echelon.
and we are seeing a lot of the top players are seeing that shift. They're doing that. They're making that move. They're starting to rearrange their teams a bit, and that's where you're going to see a few differences over the coming weeks. But in the meantime, Luke, thanks so much for joining me. Just want to mention the members area in Fantasy Football Scout. That's where we get a lot of our stats from as well. Looking at things like passing and tackling, always key, and shots in Sky. Interesting stuff. Interesting times ahead in Sky. Luke, thanks so much for joining me, and good luck with the coming game week.
You too, Joe. See you on the next one.